Good afternoon. My name is Dennis Cooper. I work at Virtuos Games. I'm the regional director for North America, where we have 2 full dev studios and 3 boutique studios doing cinematics, real-time VFX, and 3D concept art. And today we're going to talk about the evolution of co-development and making games locally, but with global teams. So we only have 30 minutes, a big topic, so I'm just going to jump right into it and ask the first question, and that is, co-development isn't new at all, but what are some ways you all have seen it change in the last 3 to 4 years? And maybe John, we'll start with you.
Shall we do a quick intro?
Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm John Doyle. I'm at PlayStation. I'm head of internal production, and which means I get the privilege of overseeing 6 of our studios, including Santa Monica Studios, Bungie, and Polyphony Digital. So I think seen quite a few changes in the market with co-dev and studio dev, in that we're seeing a lot less vendor relationships and a lot more co-development relationships, meaning creative control is shared. We're asking our partners to do a lot more than just check boxes and deliver us assets. And we're seeing a general approach towards treating folks, whether they're part of the same payroll or not, as part of the team, all trying to deliver high-quality games to players.
Yeah, thank you. Lindsay, you want to chime in on that?
I was going to say what he said.
Anything to ask? Okay, take the easy way out. That's fine. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Lindsay, CEO of Pipeworks. Pipeworks is a full dev and co-dev studio in Oregon, been around for 26 years. So we've seen a few things. To me, the macro thing that happened is the pandemic was the forcing function that enabled co-dev. I think there was kind of a before and after. Before the pandemic, there was a lot of, people in the same room working together, and that's all they knew how to do. And then the concept of outsourcing, send something over the fence and get it back later. I think when people were forced to go remote in the pandemic, that's what sort of enabled the tools and being used to working with people that are not sitting right next to you. And I think also the boom in the pandemic created a need to scale. So we can't hire people enough. Let's go to the outside world. Now I think in the post-pandemic, you're seeing the need to save costs and still have teams when you need them. So I think it's generally been an increase in comfort level with doing this that has spurred a lot of the other innovations. Now what we're seeing is going global is key. So I think people are getting more and more comfortable with working with people that are further and further away. But there's still the human touch, the local touch that's really key. But so for right now, I think absolutely the one team approach and extending trust and acting together, not as separate companies. You're all about the same thing. The game is what's important, but then the tools allow that to happen on a much broader basis.
Yeah. The one little thing that I'll add to what you're saying about the tools and being able to work other places is the other forcing function was, how do we share technology safely and securely? And we did it within our own companies during the pandemic. And so now we know how to do that with other companies around the world, just as a specific. Kay, did you want to add anything on that?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kay Arutian. I'm the general manager for Counterpunch Studios. We're a Virtuos studio that specializes in cinematics and gameplay, specifically animation. I think that the difference in the last 3 to 4 years is, to dovetail to what Lindsay was saying, initially after the pandemic, everybody got really comfortable working with co-development studios. But perhaps you were choosing, are you going to work with a global team or a local team? And I think in the last 3 to 4 years, we really perfected the global team. Having a few people that you trust in your region so that you don't have the time zone fatigue, but then working with global teams as well. So your partners start becoming both global and local, merged together to get you the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm. Jason, I think you have a pretty interesting perspective on all this, given what you do. Do you have anything you want to add on there?
Sure. My name is Jason Smith. I'm founder of Game Caviar. We're an infrastructure layer to sit between and help provide some standardization for both developers, publishers, and service providers. So piggybacking off of everything that's said here, we're kind of reaching a point where over the last 30 years, we've seen external partnerships go from kind of almost nothing to high 40, sometimes over 50% of the project cost. And at that point, I feel, we transitioned through the outsourcing stage. It's firmly the co-development stage now, and at some point it will just be development.
Correct.
And as we move past that kind of 50% of project spend is spent with partners, things change internally, especially in the large companies. All of a sudden, it's not a spend which is just taken care of on the project team, but all of a sudden the CFO expects reports. They expect to know where that money is being spent because it's such a large part of production. So I think the changes are rippling through organizations.
Yeah, good point.
It's like you've been speaking to my CFO.
So just sort of following along with this, because we've all just talked about how CodeV is here to stay. It's now global. We do have local teams. There's things to track. You mentioned time zone fatigue. What are some of the things that make it difficult working with global teams, and what are some of the things that that are great about working with local teams?
So I think that there's real talent to be tapped into globally. And I think by just working locally, you're really missing out on that talent. You're missing out on how they do things and what you can gain. I think the benefits of working locally is the personal touch, the cultural fit, the ability to just call someone, at any part of your day and be able to talk things through. A difficulty, you could swap it in, a difficulty with the global team would be communication. So really setting the tone for how communication works early is really important. And, with local teams, again, it's just limited. North America is a very small part of the world. Why limit yourself to that small chunk when there's an entire world out there full of talent and new ways of doing things that you can explore?
Yeah. Anybody have anything they want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I've done a lot of work with studios and talent in Asia, in Latin America, in Europe, as we're building primarily in North America for some of the studios that I've worked with, and it's always hard. It was hard. You had to get your art director, your tech director, your design lead on a plane, get them over there. If you're going to have a co-development relationship, you need to onboard people to your project. You need to make sure that you're on the same page creatively. And maybe once a quarter, teams are flying back and forth all the time, and that can be quite successful, especially on a longer-term project. But it's a lot of overhead, and so having people who can help coordinate that, who are more in your time zone and are able to work with you, and you can build that rapport with more quickly, is very, very valuable in terms of getting that partner up to speed creatively with what you're all trying to create.
Anything else before I move on?
Yeah, I agree with that. Getting people up to speed. I mean, alignment is so important before execution, and as I'm sure there's plenty of people here who have worked on games in one room or with a small group of people, right? And it's also difficult there. Making games has never been easy, and part of that is, it's really kind of an intersection between creative expression and budgetary and time constraints. And so often the best games come out of some creative tension. And that's a really difficult thing to manage between companies and across borders. So I think it's really healthy to be moving from outsourcing to co-development. But as a part of that journey, there's more creative decisions being made by the co-development teams. And so how to manage that creative friction is really important.
Yeah. So that leads me to the next question, but before I ask it, we have to get I want to get consensus on a premise, and that premise is, can we all agree that delivery of high quality with ease or lack of friction, on time and on budget, is the ideal CodeV experience? So high quality, we're on budget, relatively easy and frictionless. That seemed like a pretty good goal, aspirational goal.
So you're saying better, faster, cheaper, easier.
I didn't say cheaper.
I'll add
I
that.
said on budget, right? So if we all agree on that, then I want to pretend that we have a magic wand and could create the ideal co-dev scenario. What would be the best dynamic? What would we want this to look like? Who wants to go
You want me to
first?
jump in?
Sure.
Y'all said two things that I agree with entirely. I love that let's move beyond the labels and call it development. And then, but even like thinking about co-dev, you lose the co stands for collaborative. And so it has to be about collaboration. That's critical if you're one team or many teams working together. And the magic is in iteration and solving problems together in different perspectives. And what you said is the best way to think of it is one team. We're all one cause making one game. And it's easy to think about different companies or things like that. No, it's one group that's working on a game. So I think if you start from the premise that it's collaboration at its nature, that's the goal, that we're acting as one team, that we're all rowing in the same direction. But the human component is still critical. Like the carbon-based life forms that are making the games it's really important to go and look at each other as human beings that have interests and passions and things like that. So the more that the teams on a global basis can harness the shared passions and the different cultures, that's going to make the game better. And if the tools exist, the tools can either be a wonderful facilitator for that, or they can stand in the way. So I appreciate the world is kind of coming back to, let's actually get together in person, at least every now and then, to understand how we think and everything, and then we can go off and use the tools, and it'll work better that way. But I think, collaborative, one team. I love the concept of, walk before you run, learn how to work together, learn the different cadences, and then go fast. But you have to have that alignment. You have to learn how to go together, and then be willing to iterate. Like I love that on many of our co-dev kind of relationships, we start off doing one thing and we end up doing entirely different things by the end of the engagement, because you see how people are great about working together and solving problems, and then having those realignments. So being flexible, I think, is really key.
I'm going to actually keep you on the spot for a sec, because you talked about the collaborative development, working as one team, iterating, changing the approach as you gain more experience. And I know that you have kind of two examples of how this worked successfully. And without, you don't have to share the game names or anything, but could you quickly just sort of give the scenario and the end state of how that worked?
Yeah, it's a good question. Different first-party games, and I think that where things started was coming in early, like coming in pre-production on a game where you can help be a part of the team forming the vision, and then being willing to go and both extend trust and earn that trust. And so I think there was a case of there were some assumptions made by like what kinds of things we might be good at or what might be needed. And then as you're working together and you're seeing that interaction, then agency is created, right? You earn the trust and then gain that responsibility and then show what's capable of. And so there were two games where we started with a small number of people, ended up with a very large number of people, and actually like creating pods, acting as one team, and then having pods that might be led by different people that were at different companies on the same game. It wasn't about the company that you're with, it was about your expertise and your ability to go and kind of lead others in a certain direction. And that was wonderfully rewarding to go and do that. Just have the chance to gain trust and rise out.
Yeah. Anybody have anything to add? You got your magic wand?
Oh, I do. I love magic wands. I think that for the most part, the creative part really works out, because at the end of the day, we make games, and the people who make games are really passionate about games. It's artistry. That part's always there in my experience, but there's a few pillars that I would make sure are in place, and it's kind of like rules of engagement or ways of doing business. I think that something that is difficult to deal with in an ideal world would always be thought of as foresight, pre-planning. Not my house is on fire, please help me, but a well-planned, pre-planned production is always going to be ideal. It's going to release friction. Transparency for scope and what is working, what is not working is really, really important in this relationship. One side withholding information or not sharing that doesn't set anyone up for success. And then just really honest communication, honest and frequent communication. And as you were saying, yes, getting on a plane and going across the world, or having a team that has the ability to have people on your own, in your city or in your time zone that are working back to their, mothership or their team. I think it's really, really important to keep that connection and not just hand off something into a black box and get something back. That would be really important. So those 3 pillars for me are what I would wish for.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can add to that, I think the ideal requirements are a base set to deliver the game that you want. But what's often not on that priority list is actually building an amazing relationship with the other teams that you're working with. And I think to start that, you go all the way back to the beginning, to the alignment phase, and spend that time ideally in the same geographical location. But definitely the planning ahead and knowing who you're going to be working with and months before you start working with them allows you that time to really find that alignment. And not only does it make production easier, but you're not limping across the finish line. It feels like a collective that's delivered the product. And then you've got your partners for the next one. You've got your partners for the sequel. You've got that knowledge. You retain that knowledge. Nobody wants to finish a game and not work with their partners again. All right, that's not a good outcome. So I do think that's an additional piece to the list.
Yeah, I think Lindsay made a comment about trust, and I think that's probably the most important thing to establish between partners. And if you're the originating team, I've been the game director holding the vision for a game, but it's quite important to ensure that everyone working on the game, no matter what company they're part of, understands that good ideas can come from anyone. And we welcome debate, we welcome discussion, we need iteration, and you need to make sure you break down any walls that start to exist between the groups. I'm like, no, only we know exactly what we're doing here, or only we can have the ideas, the other folks are just executing. That's not a partnership, that's not co-development, that's vendor work, and that has a place, but it's not a place that is gonna enable you to get the best out of the overall relationship. So building that trust is important. It's long. I'm not going to say that you suddenly build that trust overnight. It's long. It takes time, but it gets to what you're referring to is if you can find a partner that you can trust, if you can build a great relationship, then now you've got a partner to go into the next project with and the next project with, and you don't have to spend as much of that time just building that trust. I've definitely seen at some companies where we have started things like skin development out of house in Asia. And, 6 months in, the team is telling me, this doesn't work. These guys can't get it. The quality level is too low. We're spending all our time repainting everything. And the question I would usually ask is, well, what have you done to make sure that everyone's aligned with what we're trying to solve for? What steps have you taken? And almost always in those cases, I've found you sent someone a brief, or you did some Zoom calls, and then you just expected them to deliver. And usually the answer is get on a plane, like go talk to folks, fly them over here, get their opinion on what you're trying to solve for, understand what they're great at. It's very rare that you go through all the effort to find a great talented partner and they just fail without some other issue being in the way.
For sure. I've seen it also from both sides. I'm on the service provider side now, but I was on the developer side for a long time, and I would ask the same questions. And without fail, when the team would go for a visit, they would say, oh my gosh, it looks just like our studio. Their desks look just like our desks. And it's like, what did you think was going to happen, right? And then the conversations can happen. So I agree wholeheartedly about the visitation and the talking and what did you put into this. And I think getting back to the thing we agreed on, part of it was frictionless and thinking about what we're talking about, working with local team, making games locally with global talent. In addition to the visits, rely on your local team and maybe have the local team create the briefs for the global team, And then they can also be checking in the work, and then that relieves a lot of the effort on the internal team, the internal dev team. An idea, waving my magic wand.
Speak to that really quick because I've been doing this way too long. But I've seen there's a lot of overhead teams don't get when they're first starting to work with global teams. Just how many producers do you need? How many of your senior artists need to be reviewing what's coming in? How many of your senior designers need to be reviewing every feature? And finding a partner who can embed with you and help you do some of that work to ensure the quality is there, to ensure the alignment is understanding is there, can really reduce that overhead that almost no team is ready for when they first start this.
Yeah.
And then building on that, the overhead can be reduced as the partner is taking on more of that burden of onboarding teams as well, like train-to-trainers with you were talking about trust. Trust is the most important word here, right? 'Cause it's you have to earn it, and you have to maintain it. It's like whenever I hear the term vendor, it makes me think of something that comes out of a machine. You put $1 and you get a can of soda back. And so it kind of implies a floor of expectations, but also a ceiling of expectations where you can get out of that. And I think if you're thinking about earning that trust and then showing what you can do with it, that can unleash the potential of teams, right? It's like, it's much better if someone can go and bring their ideas to the table and say, what if we did this like that? And you get the passion out of people on it. But if you lose that trust, then you don't get the opportunity to go and do that again. But if it's the hardest thing to be willing to go and let something go to someone else, that's extending trust, right? But it's like if you do that, you get greater rewards in return.
While we're on words that make us cringe and waving magic wands to have things be how we want it, resources, referring to people as resources is one of my cringe words. They're developers, they're staff, they're artists, they're animators, but oftentimes there's an Excel sheet and it's, number of resources, price.
They're carbon-based life forms.
Right, yeah, and we're not going to get to this really golden state of co-development and making games as a group if we're not thinking of each other as all game developers.
Yeah.
You talk like the internal teams aren't called resources either.
No, it starts there. It starts
Does
there.
start-
Yeah, it's all through the production. Yeah,
Don't be scared to use the word people.
Right.
right.
I'll chime in on that and say my cringe word or 2 words is staff days, or worse yet, man days. That's when I see that, that really bothers me because I think that it's so easy to just, send a bunch of notes across and just write someone off and say, they're not getting it, they're not doing this or whatever. But when you do see each other face to face, and let's say you have the additional time to have a dinner or have a drink or something like that and talk about each other's lives or families or interests or whatever, it puts like a face to the person or the staff day, and then the humanity comes back into the production and into what you're doing. And then it's less easy to just write off a team because they're not getting it, because this is somebody you hung out with, somebody you had dinner with or whatever, somebody you're going to see at the next trade show. So I think it's important to get to know one another on a personal level as well, especially if you're starting a new production or a new co-development.
And less of a time clock mentality as well.
Right, it's like I have 30 minutes to talk to you on Zoom.
Yeah. I have another aspirational wand waving thing that I think would make this all work so much better. We don't have a lot of time left, so interrupt me and raise your hand if you want to add something. But that has to do with, again, making it less, removing the friction, is some sort of security standard where if we have all these large publishers and all these dev teams that work together, right now we have a separate security check for each dev studio, and they're all kind of the same. And I don't know how this would work, but maybe it's a topic that we can talk about in different panels and different sessions and other places. But to come up with something that we all agree, if you can meet this standard, we all agree that that's it, right?
They do exist in other industries that are just as complicated as making games. So there's no reason why it shouldn't be done.
Okay.
It's just, it will definitely take some work to get there.
You volunteering to start a group?
No.
Put you,
Thank you.
Would you be on the panel of people trying to get a card? Anyway,
It will be amazing.
okay.
For sure.
We have 5 minutes left. We have to be strict on time because there's another session right after this. I'll open it to questions unless there's any closing thoughts that anybody has.
Oh, that sounds good.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions? And if you do, ideally you come up and say it into the microphone so that everybody can hear. But raise your hand if you have a question, because if not, we'll talk. Okay, go ahead. Yes, please.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Oh, it's my first time doing this. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I really appreciate it. I was just wondering because, a big theme of last year was the sustainability of the AAA model. And, obviously it has benefits and created some amazing IP and stories for us. But I was wondering specifically when we talk about trust and understanding stakeholders and partner relationships, how do you kind of go about understanding the synergy between, partners and co-dev styles before you start production? And like what goes into, understanding if two different studios or different partners are going to mesh well together before you inadvertently go on a very long journey together in creating a game that could have some high stakes behind it? Thank you.
I'm happy. I mean, we can talk from different sides of
Yeah,
this
go for it,
for
yeah.
folks. I think one of the things that we typically do is we start small. We definitely spend some time meeting the teams that we might want to work with. We identify, based on the talent and capability and availability of folks. And then we pick something that is relatively low risk and say, let's just go and see if we can build this together. And that's part of that establishment of trust to say, okay, well, now let's do a little more. You built an environment for me to a spec. Now here's kind of a box on an environment. You go be a little more creative and show us what you can do, and then we can grow larger and larger out of that. And sometimes you'll find, okay, maybe this isn't the right place to stretch this partner team, or maybe there's a challenge with the way that we don't really know what the design is yet, so it's really hard for the partner to help us out. But generally starting small and building from there seems to be the way that's worked best for me.
What he said. That's exactly right. That's the way to do it. And there's so many benefits to that too. It's like there's an issue in AAA development is teams getting too big and too bloated too early. And then it just sends you in a direction you may not necessarily want to do. I think that's a great way to do it. We've been called plenty of times when a game is ready to ship and we need 100 people to get over the finish line. But that has a really high price of failure, right? If you're doing that, this is exactly the way to help that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, look at that, ending right on time.
Right on.
Apparently there's a survey outside that they're hoping that you'll fill out. We'll be around if you have any questions that you didn't want to stand up in front of everybody to ask. So thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thanks all.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.